Today I have Ana from Boden, we're going to have a quick discussion around the StarStat digital transformation journey. And Ana is the Senior Head of Product Management, and I really practiced this one, I got it right. Senior Head of Product Management and Experience at Boden. And we're going to be talking about, Anna's going to be sharing her story around how Boden started on that digital transformation journey. And obviously, I'll let you introduce yourself and a little bit around Boden as well, and then we'll head into some questions.
Sure. So I'm Anna. I head up the product teams and the user experience teams at Boden. I've been there for 9 years. I'll go back to that because I feel like I've been at 3 companies within those 9 years. Before that, I was at Burberry, and before that, I was ASOS. And so I've seen how sort of fashion e-commerce and digital has changed throughout the years. At Boden, I joined when everything was in-house built. And then maybe 6 years ago, we had one digital transformation towards more of a best-of-breed approach, where we had a content management system, a search and merch tool, an in-house built checkout, a PIM. And by the time 2 years ago, we were looking at our tech stack, we had 4 dev teams just on browse, 2 on checkout, other dev teams for all the integrations between these amazing tools, like the Ferraris of CMS, the Ferraris of search and merch. But I think I once got quoted to build a wish list would take 6 months and 3 dev teams because of the complexity. And at that point, when we looked at total cost of ownership and the features, the basic e-com features we wanted for the business, we reassessed our approach to technology. And that's why we're now transforming back again and onto Shopify.
Cool. Actually, just drawing on that, just to digging straight in, if I'm honest, if you're finished with your introduction to everyone, that trigger point within that conversation, so obviously that was your trigger point, the wish list quote, but what was the main trigger point within the organization where everyone suddenly became aligned or started to have common conversations about, we probably need to do something different. We need to transform. What was that triggered that conversation? Obviously, you're going to be part of that.
Yeah. So we have an annual budgeting process, and the IT team were looking at the budget for the following year, and they were looking at. It really was about the total cost of all these dev teams to support the business for the next year and the future. And at that point, actually, the CTO at the time approached. So me and my team, we represent the business and customer functionality, and we were actually quite frustrated. And I think really was the budgeting process was the trigger. When you delve into the costs and you delve into the value and the effort, and that was the
so that overall total cost of ownership.
Overall total cost of ownership was the beginning of the conversations. Yeah, that was the trigger, not the end, the start, because there were lots of conversations.
And then casting your mind back to the beginning of the transformation journey, what was your biggest fear? So when you say transformation, it's probably a word that pops into everyone's heads, right? Everyone's got a different word popping into their head. And at that point, it's quite daunting, right? Because it's such a large organization, large business, complexity as well. What was your biggest fear?
Personally, I was actually quite excited. Finally, I felt like unshackled. We were going to go to a platform that's constantly innovating. However, there was a lot of fear everywhere because it's a risk-averse company. It's still founder-led, and it's had 30 years of amazing growth. It's one of the few pure-play own brand. We're not a department store. We design all our own clothes. We're 95% online. Any mistake is very costly. And Shopify at the time was not known as an enterprise platform. So actually, one of the biggest fears from the exec were, are you sure? Absolutely agree the total cost of ownership. We need to do something about that. Are you sure that is the right platform? And by the way, we didn't just decide on one platform. We assessed 3 to 4 platforms. So we did do demos. We had requirements. We went through the cycle of assessing platforms. And when we decided on Shopify, it ticked most of the boxes. A few features weren't as good as others, but overall, it was the best platform. There was a lot of sort of concern from the exec. And what they did was actually talk to other companies who were either thinking about Shopify or on Shopify to find out all the nightmare stories. And they would bring those back to us. And even today, even this week, what are we choosing? Yeah, this week or end of last week, another story came to us from another brand who are very happy they're now on Shopify, but apparently the first 90 days were a nightmare, I am quoting, and that has been brought to us and we have to manage that. So what will we do about this situation? They constantly seek out from other brands and companies their experiences, their concerns, and we have to catch those and deal with them. So that was one concern.
And from a Shopify perspective, not that we're here to sell Shopify, but it is in relation with Shopify. What was it that really stood out from a Shopify perspective that made you think, yeah, that's the one, that's the platform?
The other thing about this project, and I think different to other projects we've done at Boden, is we engage the business teams right from the beginning. So very often, or at least the technology teams will go around, assess tools, and then maybe bring in the business as and when, maybe just for the demo. But in this case, we brought the business teams from the beginning into not just the demos, but the requirements and the conversations. And their feedback from looking at the demos was very positive. So everything from the e-commerce team, looking how easy it is to build the website, visually in Shopify, to the customer service team. We have a customer service team that still takes call and customers will place orders on the phone. They're not targeted on sales, they're targeted on customer satisfaction, and they're very engaged with our customers and they like the tool. So that's the business teams were a big reason why we had a positive experience with Shopify. Actually, also Fuse Fabric, you guys came in, we did talk to other partners, but you were the only partner that could go all the way from the integrations to the front end and understood e-commerce and could then I remember this meeting with the CTO and other tech people around, and you could answer most of the questions, right? So that alleviated some of the technical concerns. So the business and the tech concerns were sort of resolved and talked about during those sessions, but there's still the fear of, talking about Fuse Fabric, you're growing at a credible speed, but you were smaller at the time. Yeah. Shopify was not for enterprise. It will come back again and again. And so what do we do with that? So the CTO at the time or the exec, they would have lots of conversations with either Shopify or you guys to what can we do, whether it's doing contract negotiations, whether it's having some clauses to alleviate concerns that they have about this, how big are you? How big is Shopify? I mean, that's still, that happens. That happens with.
Okay, so you go back. You've identified the business need for transformation. You've identified the platform at this point. You started to talk to partners. Just delve into that one a little bit more, and don't have to talk about us specifically. Can do, feel free. But generally, what was it about? What were you looking for in a partner? Obviously, you alluded to the fact that getting your business technically from end to end. But was that everything? What else were you looking for in a partner?
Well, first of all, we've gone from a very complex, right? So we have multiple systems with multiple dev teams and therefore multiple conversation integrations. When we start looking at partners, even before we realized we'd need to have two partners if we wanted to implement Shopify. You needed a partner that would do the front end and a partner that would do back-end integrations. That already was something we'd rather not have. So that actually limited then the pool. But then it was also the relationship, the good conversations. People felt comfortable talking to you and PJ. Honestly, we didn't have much choice at the time because there were not many partners who could do both back-end and front-end. But you do need to feel comfortable with partners. And it's not quite related to this, but we're going through another process in Boden, and the team had quite a unpleasant experience with a potential third party. And that has clouded nearly all our discussions around the requirements and whether they're good fit, like in terms of the actual tooling, because we can't get over the experience, the emotional experience we had with a third party. So feeling that there's transparency and openness and also challenge. So you guys are quite good at challenging us. That's also quite good and made us think. I think there was a point in time when we had an architecture in mind, and you both came back, or the Fused Fabric came back with a slightly different architecture proposal, which we then actually went with, rather than our initial architecture.
Okay, so at this point then you know where you're going. You're going Shopify. You've chosen your partner. That you know that there's a need for transformation within the organization. I think we were discussing the other day. Actually, some of the challenges at this point in the process of a transformation is influencing, right? Because that's the role of yourself or the C-suite member or the director within the business, is to try and influence other people within the business, whether it's board members or peers or the team, and getting them on board. How did you go about that within Boden?
So not just me, but we created this program team, and we created then this structure around the whole transformation program, and it included layers of communication. So at one layer is the closest layer to the project. So all the individual departments that would be impacted by the move to Shopify. So e-commerce team, 100% impacted. Call center team, 100% impacted. Finance, 80% impacted. Marketing, 50% impacted. So you get and then we selected individuals that would either be seconded 100% to the project and be backfilled, or at least we accepted that they would spend a lot of their time working with our program. And that was the first layer, and that was weekly meetings, sometimes daily, from the beginning in the discovery project, trying to understand how they do things today, if we haven't documented it, and then how it would be with Shopify. One key thing to say is, in olden days, you would get the requirements and build to the requirements. This is not the approach. If we're going to go with a platform, we don't want to customize the platform. So then we have to get these business teams to accept they have to change to fit to the platform.
How do you do that?
Difficult. No, first you have to understand what they do and then why they do it. So I remember we would have these meetings with you guys when we'd go through the as-is. That's part of the discovery with Fused Fabric. You go through the as-is and then talk about what's possible or not in Shopify. And then if it's not possible, you have to delve into, but why do you want to do that? And I remember there was one with a call center where, no, we need something in Shopify to check the age of the customer, because if they're under 16, we can't create the account. And you can do that, that's not do that before. So those kind of conversations, that's a very specific example, but it's about, and then there's a whole, what we call the MVP approach. You have a list of everything they would like because they do it today, or they're used to it, or they think is important. The list that is actually possible in Shopify, and then you go out of the gap, what is so crucial to the business, we need customization. So whether it's you guys or whether we actually push Shopify to put into a roadmap, and there's certain things we have pushed Shopify. We could not go live without split shipment. And that was sort of built into our requirement to go live on Shopify, as an example. But there's a whole other range of things that we're like, you're not gonna get it, you'll get it later. It's like, you're never gonna get it because we'll do something else, or just wait, you'll get it later. And the concept of getting it later, because we can build it later. If you think more agile, you'll get it later. It's not you'll never get it. That has been quite tricky and tough, and it's the negotiation of that gap.
Yeah, and has
been the longest.
We see that obviously within Boden, but we see that in other organizations as well, where everyone is just stuffing it in from the beginning, all their requirements at the beginning, because they're so used to not getting stuff. So they want that from day one. So you're really trying to control that scope and trying to explain that actually on Shopify, you can do changes very quickly afterwards. So it's not a case that we're going to go live and then you wait 6 months for your after changes, and trying to bring them on that journey. So.
And how often did you release before?
Well, okay, it wasn't that bad. Okay, in the olden days, it was like, sorry, when everything was in-house built, we'd release let's say February, and there'd be so many bugs to fix I might need to cut this. Anyway, that the next features would only come back 6 months later because you need to do all these hotfixes. But it actually was different. Once we got to the great thing about having 4 dev teams for browse and 2 for checkout and however many for integration, we were releasing more often, but it was so many of the things we were building and releasing were things that you can get out of the box. And I think that's what's a frustrating thing. We were releasing things that are out of the box in a platform. It wasn't, I think that was the big issue. And then why are we building things that you can get, like, for example, Shopify, you can get apps for. I think that it's just changing the mindset that you don't have to build everything in-house, because if Shopify doesn't have it, there's this massive ecosystem of potential apps that would probably solve your business problem.
So
and
just really getting into the mindset of buying technology rather than building, essentially.
Yeah.
Buying the platform, buying the apps, buying.
But that's a huge concern, by the way, to the exec. And we're 35-year company who started, and the founder's still there, and everything is in control. Even our order management system, or part of order management system, which will now go with Shopify, was in-house built. And so, so if something goes wrong, you can fix it. Whereas if it's a third party and something goes wrong, it's out of your control, and there's still that fear. Yeah.
I'm going to ask one more question. I know you're telling me that I didn't have time.
We might have food coming out.
One more question, just because it's really pertinent to the book. So, discovery phase, right at the beginning. Just recap, if you can, from your memory, because it was a year or so ago. What did that look like? There were workshops and things, but what did it look like? What did you get out of it ultimately from a discovery phase right at the beginning?
I think getting everyone around, so the whole business involved from the beginning was really important. And the start of the conversation, first of all, that they are part of that conversation, and the start of the whole sort of MVP approach and accepting the differences. And then just the other thing about, I didn't mention that program structure. We then had those teams that are close, but the very important thing was communicating to the wider business that are not directly involved with Shopify. So we then would do we'd go around different departments and talk about what is this thing. We actually even did one town hall talking about Shopify, just as getting the company to understand there was going to be a change coming. It's taking longer than we expected because of our list. But and then, as we go around, we'd go to the buying and merchandising teams, or we'd go to the photo studio teams, and actually communicating to different parts of business, even they're not part of project, new things would arise, like things we hadn't thought of. And that was really useful in that whole discovery process, to just reach out and
bring the business together and get them talking for the first time. Yeah, okay, brilliant. I'm out of time, right? Okay. All right. That's fine. We're gonna continue the conversation at the table. But first of all, thank you everyone again just for coming. I know you're super busy in your schedules. Hopefully you enjoy the business, the breakfast, and it'll set you up for your business day. So enjoy the breakfast, and also thank you, Anna, for taking the time and having the discussion with us as well. From a content perspective, there will be sort of more content going out along this theme around discovery process in Shopify. So please. Keep an eye out for it and online, and feel free to share it as well. And I think we're going to move to the table and carry on the discussion.